there is increased levels of climate issues surrounding us, and they're impacting us directly, whether it be our food, our health, diseases. All of these are really much impacted by our behavior as human beings. And this important event will be just the starting point of this important discussion. Remember that we have been holding previous discussions surrounding this issue to ensure that we bring up this agenda and lay the grounds on this important conversation. So right about now, I am first of all welcoming you all once again to this important conversation. On your chat, just the button down on your Zoom screen, you'll be able to see the chat box. Please ensure that you put across your messages in case you have any question regarding this event, you have any question regarding climate change, you have a question to our panelists. Put your questions on the chat box and we will be able to look into it and address it to the right people. Also, I am reminding each and every one of you to kindly mute your microphones so that we can be able to have smooth flow of this conversation. Also, for participants, if it's in order, you can also push your question if you feel we have not been able to address it once the panelists have been able to talk to us. But right now, let me introduce to you some of the panelists that will be bringing on board in just a few minutes from now. We have a representative from WHO Kenya. We have the CEO of KCIC Consulting. We have a representative from the Ministry of Health. We have a representative from AMREF Kenya, and we have various participants from across the globe joining us in this important conversation. I am just reminding you that in case of any question, you can put it across on the chat box. But right now, let me introduce to you Solomon Nzioka from World Health Organization Kenya to talk to us about this important conversation and bring in his keynote speech. I am inviting you, Mr. Solomon Nzioka. Mr. Solomon Nzioka, if you're able to hear us, kindly join into this important conversation. And maybe just to brief you as we wait for Mr. Solomon to join in, is that climate change is a big global threat right now here across the globe, actually. And we see that health is directly affected by climate change because we see that it affects our food, it affects our weather, and we keep on seeing things like heat waves, droughts, heavy storms, and sea levels rising. And this is just a bit of the impacts that climate has on us directly, and at the end of the day, it results to health, which is an issue that is affecting us daily. Mr. Solomon Nzioka, if you're able to join in, kindly join in. Let me remind you that this important conversation is brought to you by AMREF Health Africa in Kenya and also the Kenya Climate Innovation Center, KCIC. This important, they have come together actually to advance the climate change and health agenda that is running up to the 7th and final devolution conference, which from the recent notice that we have just been able to see is that the devolution conference has been postponed, but then this does not change in any way why it is important to address this agenda. We are also, garnering up for the COP convention that is supposed to be held in Paris sometime later on from October. So this is also an important conversation, and we are just garnering up the conversation, streaming the agenda. Maybe the host kindly look into Solomon. He's on the chat box saying that he's not able to unmute himself. Kindly check onto that. But also I can see that we have Alex. Alex is saying bonjour. All right, I can see you also have Generius Kimaru. He's saying good to be here. Climate change is a global concern and a topic to discuss. Habiba Saidi is saying hello. I'm Habiba Saidi from Tanzania. And actually, she has been able to share her contact. So definitely we'll be able to reach out to you. So remember, if you have any important notes that you feel should be addressed to the panelists, kindly share, because climate is an issue that is affecting all of us directly or indirectly. And at the end of the day, it is resulting to affecting our health, our children, our nations, and it is an important conversation. Remember that we cannot.
Thank you. I'm able to unmute now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mr. Solomon Nzioka. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning for some of those who may not in the region. Yes, thank you very much. My name is Solomon Nzioka. I work for WHO, the Kenya Country Office, in the area of climate change and health, and more broadly, the issues about environmental risk factors to human health. And I'm happy to be in this wonderful webinar to meet colleagues and like-minded people who are as much affected by the issues ahead as we already have had been affected in the past. So just to take off this discussion is to give a quick highlight regarding where we have been at global and regional level, specifically on the issues of climate change. And we look forward to quite a wonderful discussion from this webinar, and I hope it will be one of the many to follow. Let me try to see if I can share my slide. Yes. Is my slide shared, Chair?
Maybe as we are sorting out the slide issue, I can be able to welcome Newton Owino. He says he's an entrepreneur based in Kisumu and he's operating a fish leathery tannery. I can also be able to see Onyango Odongo. He's from National Youth Council, Siaya. Welcome to this important conversation. I am also able to see Catherine Kasoa. He says, Salams, I'm Director Go Green Awards Africa. Welcome to this important conversation. Remember that you can channel your message through our chat box just right below your screen in case you have any concern, any question on climate change, on health issues. How are the two involved? You know, this is a question that many ask. How is climate directly or indirectly involved with health? And I can tell you for a fact that it affects us directly, not even indirectly. It affects us directly because at the end of the day, climate results into climate weather results into rainfall, rainfall results into food, climate results to, if there's an effect with climate and we see irregular rainfall or unusual kind of rainfall, flooding, water banks rupturing, all of this end up to diseases, and all of this at the end of the day affects us and it goes back to health. So at the end of the day, climate really contributes so much to how health impacts us as a population. From AMREF, are you able to sort out Mr. Solomon? Kindly check on that. But meanwhile, I am welcoming Fred Josiah from Siaya. Welcome to this conversation.
Martin, we have issues? Yes. Okay, right away.
I'm also welcoming Johnson Boyer. Johnson says, welcome everyone. It's such a great opportunity. Climatic change is a very essential and crucial to our countries. Regards, Johnson Boyer. Thank you so much and welcome to this important conversation. We also have Francis Mumo Nzuki from KCCWG, Adaptation Thematic Working Group. Welcome to this important conversation. We also have Abbas Ali Noor, says, I am an agronomist we make green in our country. And I certainly agree that it is important to return the green atmosphere, the green effect to our country. It is very
Absent.
We also have Eric Chwea from Kenya Climate Innovation Center, Isiolo. So we can see that we have people from different spaces joining us to discuss this key topic, key important issue at this time. Let me also highlight to you that the theme for this, let me talk to you about also why this conference is important at this particular time, is also because currently as a nation, we are experiencing drought in some places. And maybe if you watched news recently, you will realize that in about 20 counties, in about 12 counties, they're facing droughts. And we need a huge amount of money. We need about 9.4 billion shillings, yet we only have 2 billion shillings as a country. So this tells you that we really need to bring in a lot of investors. We really need to bring in a lot of research. We need to bring in our heads from different spaces to share ideas, innovative solutions to ensure that at the end of the day, climate change issues are talked about, are dealt with, and we find important solutions that work for us as a country. All right, thank you. I can see that we now are able to see the slide from Solomon Nzioka. Welcome, the floor is yours, Mr. Solomon Nzioka.
Yes, thank you, and sorry for that. Martin, if you can go to the next slide, please, I'll appreciate. Yes, a quick outline is I just want to touch on what we know or what we see, the climate health risks, the key climate sensitive disease trends we've been observing, and then the global leadership on climate and health mitigation. Next slide, please. These are some of the things that we see when we talk about climate change or climate variability, and they are common phenomena. They are becoming more frequent than before. Next one, please. So one of the key items about climate change is that it affects the social and environmental determinants of health, including clean air, causing about 250 additional deaths per year, issues about direct damage like we've seen, the mudslides, and of course it affects the areas with weak health infrastructure the most. And that's where Kenya and most other African countries lie. Then one of the items that we need to do is to reduce emissions through better transport and organization. These are the mitigation adaptation issues, which are the two key things that I know the practitioners in this field are privy to. You either adapt or you mitigate the causes. Next one, please. The other fact we know is that in the last 130 years, and probably why we are talking about 130 years is because it takes a while for really climate change to be actualized. And one of the key items is that even 1 degree change affects a lot of issues, especially biological driven issues such as health and disease. It has changed by about 0.85 degrees. And we are already feeling the impacts. Issues about sea level rise. Last week, I happened to be in Kisumu, and I've seen the waters have really risen. Some buildings are still are emerging in the waters, and this is real. And now it's no longer imagined like it was being discussed 10 years ago. Next, please. Next, please. The other fact we know is about the droughts that Sada, you have mentioned, and it has been, the trends have been very consistent. Between 2006 and 2011, we had the worst drought in the Horn of Africa, and I'm sure that we're still living by the impacts. About 2.7 million people were affected in the Horn of Africa. Notwithstanding the following period, 2017, about 5 out of the 47 counties reported emergency based on drought. And recently, next one please. Recently in 2018, about 8 out of the 47 counties also declared health emergencies. And the trend has been increasing ever since. Next one please. Now, when we talk about climate change, because climate change and its health nexus, as we are phrasing the webinar today, is very complex. It has a multi-directional interaction, and sometimes it's difficult to have a direct causal relationship between what happens outside the climate arena and what happens within the biological systems within ourselves, that is our bodies. We also end up having a situation of food insecurity, and like I mentioned, the issues about water rise. Next, please. Now, yes, like I mentioned, the interaction is quite complex, and this is slide is just to show us the different pathways that we have been dealing with, and the scientists in this area have been trying to crack. I must say that I come from the background where there was a lot of debate whether climate change, one, is real, and two, if it's really because of human actions or not. But I think that was settled more than 10 years ago, that it's real, and human have the highest impact on driving the climate change and variability issues that we are facing. Next, please. An example is the Menigoko belt that transcends the African region. As we can see, that's how it is. It's in the upper part of the African belt, and that's a convergence zone of the different strong winds, the monsoons, and others. And that belt has been expanding over time. Let's see the next example. And this is also the same now reflected in terms of the impacts. The people it has been affecting in different places in the western region of Africa. Next, please. Now, down south in the same continent, we find the Limpopo River Basin, which has its own dynamics, and the way that Limpopo Basin defines the climate and health outcomes of the surrounding countries is quite phenomenal. And every time there are change of winds, there is always an outcry whether we have floods or we have extended droughts around these areas. And the impacts, especially for health, have been more frequent and more severe in the recent past. Next, please. This is an overlay about climate and disease. So we are right, and thanks for phrasing this discussion. We see climate kind of determines what kind of, and the degree of, and the intensity of certain infections around the globe. That's what this map is saying, and we can also see it clearer more on using the African map where malaria is in the post. Next, please. Yes, this is just to wrap up my opening remarks. A lot of work had been done in this area, but I think a lot more ahead is expected. I do know that one of the key guiding documents in the country is coming to end in 2022, the action plan that has been guiding the country, and it's my hope that this meeting and in the coming meetings, we will look back at what was achieved and what we can do in the next 5 or so years. Thank you very much. I want to stop here, and back to you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon Njoka. Before I let you go, maybe I would like to ask, when you say that we should be able to, revisit the documents that we have been guiding us for the past few years here in the country, maybe in your own articulation, in your own view, where are we as a country right now? Are we in a good place?
It's a good question, Saada. I think it's only stakeholders who can agree on where we are. But if you ask me my personal opinion, there's a lot that has been identified and very little action, especially where the rubber meets the road, where health is impacted by climate change. Issues of early warning were identified, but I think we have invested not much in that area, among other items.
Thank you so much. We will be getting more questions from the participants. I can see quite a number coming in on the chat section. I will be going through all of them, so don't you worry. But first and foremost, right now, I would like to introduce our panel so that we can be able to just get a gist of who is here and why this conversation is important. Please continue posting your questions on the chat box. I will be able to look into all of them, and definitely your questions will be answered. So right about now, I would like to, first of all, I understand that we will be having a video just to set the piece, keep us in the same momentum to understand just how grievous is climate change to us, to our children, to our families, to our country, and also the globe in general. So right now we will be having a video playing just to keep us aware or to make us understand why this conference is important, and also just to let us know actually just how severe is the impact of climate change on us. KCIC, if we can have the video on right now. Meanwhile, I can see Janarius Kimarus. Okay. I can be able to see Janarius Kimaru says he's a strong advocate of organic farming using the PPP model in restoring soil health by processing organic rural waste constituting coffee pulps, banana peels, which are rich in nitrogen and soil conditioning elements. Agribusiness and agricultural products demand are skyrocketing. Thank you so much, Janarius Kimaru, for joining us to this session. Right about now, let's go into the video session.
According to the World Bank, Kenya has a varied climate. It is hot and humid in the coast, temperate inland, and arid or semi-arid with minimal rainfall in the northeast. However, Kenya has multiple vulnerabilities to climate change. The country may likely see an increase in the intensity of floods common to the region alongside changing temperature and rainfall patterns. Such climate-driven events will impact on the recent gains in social development and public health. The risk of malaria and other waterborne diseases are projected to increase in future years due to the changing climate conditions. More severe and frequent flooding may displace marginalized communities and increase the risk of waterborne diseases, exacerbate incidences of female genital mutilation, and higher temperatures may threaten food and national security, agricultural livelihoods, and increase heat-related deaths in the elderly.
Kwanza tangu mimi nikiwa mtoto mpaka wakati huu kuna mabadiliko mengi ambaye yamejitokeza. Kwa mfano mbeleni ama miaka zingine za nyuma kulikuwa na mvua. Kuna ile mvua ya kwanza na kuna ile ya nyuma, na zote huwa inapatikana kwa muda unaofaa. Sasa wakati hiyo kulikuwa na nyasi mingi na kulikuwa na hatukuwa na shida, maana tulikuwa na maziwa. Lakini kufikia hizi wakati ama nyakati ambayo tuko sasa, kuna mabadiliko. Kwanza hata upande wa mvua haikuji kwa ile wakati ambaye tulikuwa tunapata. Inaenda nanga na misimu. Saa ingine tunasema tunalima. Na tunalima ile wakati ambayo sisi tunajua mvua inakuja. Sasa tukilima mvua ikuji yenye sisi tunatarajia. Katika afya inatuathiri kwa sababu tunakosa chakula, na unajua tukikosa chakula afya yetu inasoroteka kwa sababu hatushibi, hatupati chakula ya kushiba. Unakuta watoto wameanza kuwa na ile semekana watoto wako na kwashoko kwa sababu hawakuli chakula mzuri, hawapati chakula nzuri. Na maji pia tunakosa juu zile chemchemi zote za maji zinakauka, kiangazi ikiingia hakuna maji. So na tena inakuwa ile vumbi yote inaamuka, kila saa tunapata mahoma kwa sababu ya hiyo vumbi.
Tunategemeanga sana ng'ombe. Sasa kiangazi kikuja tunaweza hamisha, sikufe, zinakufa. Tunakuja sasa nyumbani na affect wasichana kwa sababu msichana akikuwa mdogo tunatairi. Sawa, tukimtairi ana nini? Tunapeana sasa ndio tupate sisi turudishe hiyo livestock yetu ndio tukue na ng'ombe kidogo.
With a growing understanding of the human cost of a warming climate, the need for adaptation measures to protect health is now more important than ever. The COVID-19 pandemic makes clear the challenges faced by health systems around the world, resulting from large unexpected shifts in demand without sufficient adaptation or integration of health services across various sectors. As this public health crisis continues and is compounded by climate-attributable risks, rapid and proactive interventions are crucial to prepare for and build resilience to both the health threats of climate change and of pandemics.
Climate change due to increased greenhouse emissions causes about 150,000 deaths annually due to extreme weather events such as heat waves, flooding, droughts, among others. The direct cost to health is projected to be about $2 to $4 billion per annum, and this is expected to increase drastically by the year 2030. Developing countries, particularly those in sub-Saharan Africa, where most populations are dependent on climate-sensitive economies, besides bearing the heavy burden of communicable diseases, weak health systems, and high poverty levels, are most vulnerable. Climate change, compounded with the effects of health, is likely to affect community health resilience, and if not addressed, will likely push the populations into deeper poverty pockets.
We cannot have a sustainable future without climate resilient and healthy societies. We all have an enormous role to play in the collective quest for public health by defining our climate actions, objectives, allocation of resources, mobilization of stakeholders, and accountability. This is why AMREF Health Africa in Kenya, the Ministry of Health, and Kenya Climate Innovation Center have come together to champion research, innovation, and partnerships in line with what we believe will confer direct benefits to enhance community health resilience by expanding and deepening partnerships among stakeholders, mainstream participatory community health resilience approaches, and finally, employing a gender perspective in climate change and health response to accelerate health equality and equity both between and within populations.
Indeed, climate change is a big threat, to our health systems. And this is because climate change have affected social and environmental determinants of health. Here I'm talking about clean air, I'm talking about sufficient food, I'm talking about even shelter. And also at the same time, it's also issues about, the heat that we have seen as a result of climate change. And indeed, all these things put together is that they are overwhelming our health systems. We've seen more diseases, we've seen more malnutrition because of lack of sufficient food. And at the same time, indoor house pollution still contributes, to some of the diseases that we've seen in the recent past. And when you look at it all together, is an issue about the effect of climate change to the health systems in our continent of Africa.
Recognizes the negative impacts of climate change, and as such has put measures in place to mitigate on the same. Some of these measures include: one, establishment of a division that takes care or coordinates matters related to climate change. The ministry has also initiated a technical working group that brings together different professionals who discuss matters on climate change. The ministry also regularly holds scientific conferences on climate change, as well as the fact that there are indoor air pollution related diseases. The ministry has developed a training manual for community health volunteers and community health extension workers to mitigate on the same. The ministry has gone further to collaborate and partner with other ministries, like, for example, in partnership with the Ministry of Energy, is implementing the Kenya off-grid solar access project, whereby 14 other sub-counties are benefiting from this, and the healthcare facilities are actually benefiting when there is connection to community facilities. The ministry also was also involved in the development and updating of the nationally determined contributions, which play a big role in guiding on those actions which can be used in combating emissions in the environment. The ministry, in partnership with the Kenya Meteorological Department and the WHO, has set up an early warning system for highlight malaria. This assists in planning and preparing for malaria epidemics. In addition, the ministry also has put in place systems for capacity building for its own health workers, among other stakeholders. We want to also note that we would really appreciate if more resources are allocated in health and climate change, as well having the capacity or strengthening capacity to translate policy and research into actions.
Thank you so much, KCIC and AMREF Kenya, for that important video, which is setting our conversation on today and, just bringing us up to speed on why this conversation is very, very important for us to understand how climate has a direct impact on our health and why it is important for us to keep on talking about this issue until we get it right. That is when we will be done. But for now, we have to keep on talking about it. So right now, let me introduce to you our panelist. We have Mr. Martin Mushangi. Martin Mushangi is the Program Director, WASH NTDs and PHEs for AMREF Health Africa in Kenya. He is an accomplished public health professional with over 12 years of experience designing, coordinating, and managing WASH and public health programs. His primary interest is developing and deploying practical solutions that bridge the gap between scientific knowledge and community health needs. Martin also holds a master's degree in public health and a Bachelor of Science degree in environmental health. The other panelist is Mr. Anthony Wainaina. Mr. Anthony Wainaina has served as a public health officer in various capacities for more than 25 years. Currently, he is serving as a Deputy Director, Public Health at the Ministry of Health. Currently he's serving as the Deputy Director, Public Health at the Ministry of Health in Kenya and Head Waste Management, Division of Climate Change and Pollution Control. He has a Master's in Epidemiology and Population Health, a BSc in Environmental Health, and a HND in Environmental Health and Diploma in Environmental Health. Our other panelist is Mr. Prabhakar Vanam. Mr. Vanam is CEO of KCIC Consulting Limited and has over 19 years of experience working on climate change issues across urban development, health, and education sectors. As Associate Director at Megral Capital, he worked on critical issues of climate finance and renewable energy. At IPE Global, he was responsible for implementing projects across health and education sector. He has an MBA in HR and a Bachelor's of Commerce. Right about now, I am inviting our panelists. Kindly put on your camera so that our participants can be able to see where you are. And just to kickstart off this panel discussion session, I would like for our first panelist, Mr. Mushangi, to talk about, first of all, why climate change is now the biggest global health threat of the 21st century. So if you have watched this video, I'm sure you have seen some of these faces, they might be familiar, but right about now, I am welcoming Mr. Mushangi.
Thank you so much, Sanda, and welcome our listeners. So as you've been told, my name is Martin Mushangi. I'm the Program Director for Water, Sanitation and Hygiene and Neglect and Tropical Diseases at AMREF Health Africa. So for those of you who know, AMREF Health Africa is a health NGO. Our vision is lasting health change in Africa. And we do this by working very closely with various stakeholders. We always put the community at the center of what we do. And for sure, climate change incrementally is affecting our health. And I would start with, first of all, opening the scope of what I call the Great Acceleration, or where this began from. As human beings, we began by, first of all, exploiting resources unsustainably. And for that case, each and every day we are injecting carbon into the atmosphere. The effect of this is global warming. Global warming itself is leading to climate change. And now the effects are like, we have a lot of water, sometimes which we don't need in the form of floods, and sometimes we don't have water in the form of droughts. So you can see most of these things can be controlled by moral imperatives. If we are conscious and we decide to do what is right as human beings, we are able to control, first of all, the negative effects on the climate change and overall influence our health, which is not necessarily the biological part of it, but it is also the mental component of it, feeling comfortable. Nobody would want to stay in a situation whereby you are affected by excess heat. So in short, I would want to say for sure, climate change is here and it is affecting our health. And I call upon each and every one of us to take actions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mushangi. I would like to invite our second panelist, Mr. Anthony Wainaina, just to continue on the same speed on why it is important for us to discuss about climate and how it is affecting health. Mr. Anthony Wainaina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. For those who it is good morning to you, and good evening for those who it is evening. For sure, climate change is impacting life in all areas, particularly on health matters, and it is a very critical matter in the world that we live in. As human beings, as we conduct our normal businesses here and there are some basic things that we must do for us to survive in this world.
Mr. Wainaina, just
yes,
allow
please.
me to intervene. Kindly put on your video. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I was saying that as we carry out several activities in our day-to-day living for our own survival, there are those activities that lead to unwanted pollutants that arise from those activities. And these activities are basic for our survival. And without really any intention from any of us as human beings, the resultant impacts are really wanton, and they go beyond where we live ourselves. And I like giving the example of how we cook our food. Each one of us has had a meal today, or had a meal in the morning, or is going to have a meal. But the process of undergoing that cooking of that food in itself has impact to the environment we live in, and eventually in the climate change. What happens is that those pollutants, they warm the environment, gases get trapped in, and this invariably changes the ecosystems in which you operate. This in turn changes the ecosystems. You can imagine that those microorganisms and other, either even not only the microorganisms, are able to find either the natural environment either unfavorable or more favorable. So they multiply in large numbers and you occupy spaces they were not supposed to have occupied. In addition, that as we carry out those activities, again, we emit other particles which when we inhale also, they cause serious effect to our bodies. So climate change affects our health in many ways. For example, when we have the heavy rains and the health facility is submerged in water, physically, it means that even if the place is well stocked with medicine, there are health workers there, it may not be possible. You can imagine a situation whereby physically, again, a road to access to the health facility is washed away. So as the Ministry of Health, we recognize this, and we have, in one way or the other, come up with some programs that respond to health impacts arising from climate change. I think for now, I'll leave it to that, and maybe we shall elaborate as we continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wainaina. I would like to invite our third panelist, Mr. Prabhakar Vanam, just to continue with the same momentum on why it is important to have this conversation and how climate change affects our health.
Thank you so much, Sada, and thank you, Anthony, thank you, Solomon, and thank you, Martin. I mean, the disadvantage of being the third speaker is there is always a risk of repeating a few of the things that the elite panelists have already spoken, but I'll try to not to do so. So allow me to say this. I think the video and the presentation from WHO had made abundantly clear to all the listeners that, the climate change is real, the impacts of it is real, it has all kinds of problems on our human health. So it has many impacts on the fundamental aspects of good health, be it clean air and water, sufficient food, adequate shelter, and also, if you want to have a freedom from diseases, I mean, climate change is something that you need to address along with various other things that we do. A warmer and a variable climate increases the transmission of water, vector, foodborne diseases, and threatens the change of prevalence to those associated with air pollutants. So all these things are well proven, not just in today's webinar, but it has been proven elsewhere as well in various theses and various researchers. So climate change, along with the health, it can also disrupt your natural systems because it challenges the controls of various diseases. It makes it possible for diseases to spread and various things. So UNFCCC, I'll just quote one example of one convention of UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Framework for Climate Change. They say that climate change affects health in three pathways. The first one is directly through weather variables, such as heat and storms, as my colleagues have already mentioned. Secondly, indirectly through natural systems, such as disease vectors. And thirdly, through pathways heavily mediated by human systems, such as undernutrition and various things. So these are the three major pathways through which our health gets suffered through the climate change activities. And also there is scientific consensus, that the global climate is changing with rising surface temperatures and all these things. So why are we doing this webinar? Just to set the context and just to extend the discussions to a slightly different connotation. To address all these issues, AmRef Health Africa and KCIC, we came together, we started these discussions way back, around 6 months or 9 months back, when we wanted to address critical issues of climate change as well as health. So that's the reason why we both came together, because we wanted to extend the knowledge that both the organizations have. AmRef has been pioneering fantastic work in the space of public health, and KCIC has been doing a lot of work in the climate change space. So we wanted to come together and form a nexus to address common areas within the climate change and health. So this and more, I think we can deliberate further in the next round of questions or next round of discussions. Back to you, Sada.
All right, thank you. Before I even let you go, maybe we can start with you. There's one question here. What is the KCIC model on mitigating climate change? You've mentioned that KCIC is very much involved in climate issues. So what model are you using to mitigate climate change within the health sector?
Thanks for that question, Sada. I think the model is fairly simple. Whatever it takes to ensure that the impact is created on the ground. Whatever knowledge has been gathered has been put into a simple framework at KCIC. We call it the 5 principles. First one is access to finance. So what we do is, whatever we do, we try to promote SMEs, we try to promote private sector development, to come up with innovations, to come up with solutions which will mitigate, which will positively impact the climate change. So what we do, one of the major challenges, all our enterprises, all the people who has a brilliant idea, but they don't know where to go and how the idea will be served, how the idea will be implemented. So what we have come up with a 5 model is, first one is access to finance, where we try to provide some seed capital. We call it proof of concept testing. Somebody has a concept, we kind of provide some grants, around $50,000. To test the concept, to test the prototype, because the entrepreneur or the SME or the person who has a brilliant idea should not be bowed down saying that, my idea is there, but it takes investments, it takes resources. So the resources are here. So the KCIC provides that as a service. Now, along with that, what happens is when somebody comes up with an idea, the idea is limited to based on his or her knowledge. So we try to also provide a comprehensive business advisory services, which will entail incubation services or acceleration services or mentorship services. So whatever it takes, be it technology issue, be it financial issues, be it HR issue, legal issue, product issue, be it whatever be the issue, we try to provide business advisory services so that the person who's coming up with an idea is conceptualized, the prototype is properly tested, and it is ready to take off. So that's number 2. Number 3 is we also provide access to facilities. Now, what we mean by access to facilities is many of us, a mama in a village, for example, has an idea, but don't know to do further research on that. So we provide office spaces. We also provide testing centers to test the prototype, which will have some positive impact. The 4th service we offer is access to information, because in today's world, information is available, but information is also the king. So we try to provide various information in terms of what has happened on that particular idea in the previous, whether it has been tested before, whether it has been successful before, or whether it has any flaws, whether it needs any further research. So that's what we provide. And lastly, one of the most important services we also provide is the SME is there, the finance is there, the facilities are there, but sometimes the policy impediments are also there. So we try to create an enabling environment where we try to address the critical policy issues so that the private sector can come in, the SME can come in, a person who has an idea can come in and take off from an idea. So we do advocacy, we also try to address the key challenges. So all in all, what we try to do is we create an ecosystem for the person who has a model, and that ecosystem is encompassing all kinds of services so that the person is not limited in terms of floating the idea and also commercially successfully testing the idea. I hope that answered your questions about.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much, Mr. Vanam. I would like to move to Mr. Martin Moshangi. When Mr. Vanam mentioned about bringing in the small scale, traders to ensure that they also participate in this climate journey. AMREF AMREF Kenya has been very much involved with a lot of community engagement to talk about climate issues, health issues. Maybe you can bring us to speed with what is the role of AMREF right now in ensuring that we bridge this gap between climate and health. Mr. Moshangi, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so thank you again, Sandra. So first of all, our theory of change in climate change and health is grounded on the fact that if we bring the stakeholders together and with the community at the center, and then we are able to advance specific mitigation and adaptation measures against climate change, and then we utilize specific tools, which are the approaches that we deploy, like One Health, and ensuring that the antimicrobial resistance is addressed, and other things, including addressing the direct effects of climate change in terms of health, that is treating the diseases and making sure that if it is non-communicable diseases, they are taken care of. Then we are able to address both the climate change and the health issues together. So that's the entire theory of change. Now, for that case, AMREF Health Africa, first of all, believes in working together with the community. And so for that case, we normally do a whole package of community engagement. From this perspective, we believe in empowering communities to take care of their health. For that case, you've seen that we are advancing the entire agenda of universal health coverage, which is first of all taking away the financial risk of paying for your health services directly from your pocket. That's why we continue promoting health insurance and all that. But before you get the communities to pay for their insurance, then you need to empower them to be able to make some money, which then they can be able to invest in whatever needs they have as the basic needs, and also to pay for that. And so we have a whole economic empowerment agenda, and we do so by taking into cognizance the basics. So like if it is an intervention which is centered around water, sanitation, and hygiene, we will try as much as possible to ensure that whereas we provide the service or the infrastructure for water, then we embed a business case into that. So that water is both used for domestic and also used for productive purposes. And that's the way we look at it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin. I would like to welcome Mr. Anthony Wainaina from the Ministry of Health. You have a lot of questions here coming in from the participants, and one of the key questions that they would like to know is, as much as we say we are still on the negative side, there are efforts that have been made to ensure that we talk about climate issues and we address the issues. But where are we as a country, and what is maybe the funding that is there to ensure that we mitigate issues surrounding climate?
Thank you very much. Climate change and I think general issues concerning environment are actually cast across all sectors. And as such, whatever the Ministry of Health does, it does in collaboration with other government ministries, agencies, departments, and other stakeholders. Like in the forum we are in today, I want to say that I'm really excited because climate change and health, and I would wish to say that from here onwards, we are going to give it a little bit more visibility, is that the funding and the support that comes about is from across sectors. Like what we are doing, we are not doing single-handedly as a ministry. We are working with others. For example, we have just talked about the early warning system. Early warning system, we are working with the Ministry of Environment through the Department of the Meteorological Department and the WHO, among others. You see, that kind of component comes through those bodies, and as a Ministry of Health, we are able to bring all this. We also look at an issue, let's say, for example, concerning food security and safety. The same Ministry of Health works with Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Environment once again, and we're able to actually plan for accordingly. So in matters of funding, is not that we are able to actually say that this is allocated for this. I'm aware that there is a climate fund, which is actually being managed from the Climate Change Directorate. And I think each member or each stakeholder is free actually to access that, to carry out even research to understand phenomena which could be there. So I want to say that there is relatively good support in terms of how to take over interventions related to climate change. But as you know, resources are never enough to the completion. We can always have room to improve the same. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. There's this question from Generous Kimaru. Actually, he's the one who asked about funding. And there's also another one from him. He asks the tune of funding towards private sector innovation in climate change mitigation in our country. So are you able to differentiate between funding to the public sector and the private sector?
Yes, I think the issue of, as I've said, there is a climate change fund, and which is basically run from the Climate Change Directorate. They would actually give the protocol and guidance on how to go about it. But even at the county level, each particular county actually ideally should have a climate fund and would get the necessary assistance from that particular place. So I would encourage him to, first of all, check with both the health department in their county and also the Department of Environment at the county level. They will get details of the same. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to move to this other question on diseases, and anyone from the panel, Mr. Martin, Mr. Vanam, or even Solomon can talk about it. Diseases change with favorable climate. What are some of the human behaviors that are currently affecting climate and attributing to this phenomena?
Good. So maybe I'll take it up and then my colleagues will synergize. As I said earlier, there was a whole issue around consumerism or the great acceleration, whereby we as human beings or as the human race are increasing manufacturing so that we can be able to satisfy our demands in terms of consumption. And so for that case, you realize that there's a lot of carbon dioxide which is injected when we are trying to build roads, when we are trying to motorize ourselves to various places, whether it is offices and all that. And of course, that has changed the entire phenomena of climate change. In other words, it has led to climate change issues. And so that's the beginning of the whole conversation around climate change and health. And of course, as I alluded earlier, when you have now changing temperatures within regions, then either way, you have a factor which is being governed by that kind of an ecological zone. For that case, I'll give a very quick example, and I know Solomon is likely to synergize on this because when you look at malaria, there's a whole issue about highland malaria. Initially, in Kenyan highlands and many other places, highlands, malaria could not thrive. And this is because the mosquito, which is the vector, could not reproduce effectively. But now with global warming, you realize that those areas where temperatures were not favorable for vector replication, it is possible to have that. And so then you see malaria moving from the endemic areas to some other areas where it wasn't. So that's one of the quick examples, and we see this happening, and of course with France and all that, and the cholera patterns. So there are many examples around how climate change is directly affecting health. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. Before Solomon speaks, maybe you can also talk about the issue of the impact of climate has on food security, Solomon.
Sorry, Sad, I missed. Was that for me?
Yes. Just to add on how diseases are brought about as a result of climate change and also how food security is impacted. This is a question from Tanzania.
Yes, thank you very much, Saad, and thank you very much, the person who has asked the question. Like I mentioned, the pathways through which climate affects health is quite diverse, but the ones that we can quickly grasp is where it affects the vector. So we know that the vector can survive outside, but for it to be able to transmit disease in the time that is required for sustaining a certain disease outcome, it depends much on the climate in terms of temperature, humidity, and such issues. So like Martin mentioned, the issue of carbon dioxide and why it is called a greenhouse effect, it causes warming this way that when we have this the carbon dioxide does not escape and is too much to be absorbed into the carbon sinks like the Himalayas and the mouth of Kenya, then it remains floating for more than is necessary, and then it means that the waves hitting the earth cannot disappear quickly, and that's how we have the glaciers, the Mount Kenya and Kilimanjaro edge, or the ice stones melting. When this happens, it affects communities. I've seen a comment from one of the participants confirming about Lake Victoria, where schools are flooded, and this water is not moving. It's not like a flash flood. It's there to stay, and this affects communities. About food insecurity, the issues about drought. When like it in the video we saw, now we can no longer predict the seasons. It was obvious we only had 2 seasons. I'm not sure if they are going to revise that in the tropics, but for sure now it's much more unpredictable how many and when the season begins and when it ends. So that actually affects the health, the food security systems, whether it's transport, whether it is the maturity of the current crops known, and so it affects the whole society, meaning we also need to invest more on research, what really can adapt. This is in form of adaptation, to live with the situation as it is for now, because it's likely, like it was warned in the last IPCC report, we may not be able to reverse the damage already. What we can do is to manage the rate to which the curve is bending towards the extreme events that we were warned about a decade ago. Sorry, and back to you for taking longer to explain that part.
It's okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Solomon.
Sada, I could add on that.
Yes, sure.
Okay, thank you. I think in terms of food safety and security, I think a good example would be, for example, when you talk of the cereals. And cereals have to completely dry in their storage for them to be in a safe state of use for consumption. So what happens is that because of the weather variability and maybe even prolonged rainfalls, and it is humid, it means that once we harvest the rains, the cereals, we store them in very humid, wet places, and as such, aflatoxins grow and therefore is not fit for human consumption. And if for one reason or the other, that unfit food is consumed, it leads to some of the cancers we are observing. So it is important to note that food security, in addition to having the floods washing away the harvest, or actually failing to have a sufficient harvest, that ability to be able to store the food stuff also affects the security. The other thing is that sometimes the rains could stay for longer than expected in the fields, and therefore what was expected to have been harvested gets rotten and it cannot be reached. We also have cases of whereby, and I like giving the example of we have a high production area, but what is in there, because of the floods, the place gets encroached. There are people starving with a lot of food, and another population elsewhere doesn't have any food at all. Thank you very much for now.
Thank you. Just hold on, Mr. Yes, Mr. Vanam.
Sorry, just one sentence to add on to that. That's a very important question, so I thought I'll just pitch in. Look at the way I mean, food security is at center across Africa. The reason is, because of the unsustainable practices, and that is because of the climate change issues. So one of the participant had mentioned is farmer is at center of it because they use a lot of fertilizers. And what prompted them to use fertilizers when our ancestors never used any fertilizers? Because a lot of weather has changed. It has become hotter. It has become colder. It has rained when it is not supposed to rain. So people resort to all kind of different practices, which will A, affect the food quality itself, and B, we are also not leaving a sustainable farmland for our next generation kind of a thing also. So we are spoiling ourselves right now. We are spoiling the land, the fertility of the land as well. And for future generations, we are not leaving anything good for the future generations as well. So that's the nexus that we are talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Vanam, before you go, someone is also asking how is technology, or how can we use technology innovations to help in this agenda?
Well, that's a very important question. Whoever asked this, thank you so much for that question. I think technology, as climate change is center of everything, technology has also become center of everything. There is so much of information that is available. There is so much of experiments that have already done in the world. There are so many solutions in terms of technology. We can sit here and monitor what's happening in your field 300 kilometers away. You can sit here and understand when the rainfall could actually come, and you can plan your farming accordingly. In terms of your health as well, you can use various kind of technological aids to ensure that which health center, where it is, and as well as what kind of diseases are born by what kind of food. So it's an amalgamation. It's an innovation. And Kenya is blessed in that sense, because the mobile penetration is very high in Kenya, and that is something that every donor agency, every INGO, every organization who is working in the health sector is kind of promoting, because technology is going to play a huge role. And along with technology, if you bring in the aspect of relevant information, I think the effectiveness and efficiency of everybody who is working in the sector will only go up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vanam. I would like to go back to Mr. Anthony. There's someone asking about putting or talking about climate issues on our school curriculum. Is this something that maybe you think should be done and emphasized more?
Yes, definitely. This planet we have, we actually did not borrow it from our ancestors, but we are holding brief for the future generation. And as such, whatever we are doing, we should be seeing beyond ourselves and preparing. Every time we are preparing the people coming after us. So the best way to move forward is to put measures in place to ensure that in schools where we have the young people, the youth, they are able to be equipped with this knowledge on how their omission or commission will affect their living environment, affecting the climate, and eventually our own survival, their own and our own survival. So in short, I would say that it is important to actually put this curriculum in schools. And I'm aware that, again, I work very closely with the Climate Change Directorate. In fact, regularly we work with them. I'm aware there are plans in place to actually put this into school curricula. And I think if they have not done it, it should be there. In addition, I'm also aware that there's an open portal which is accessible to anyone who can go online and access any kind of material they would wish. And now that the fact that you realize quite a number of people can access the internet, and anytime that people have any question, one can easily log into and find out what is available as a piece of information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anthony. Mr. Martin, maybe you would like to add on this issue, and also you can mention about youth involvement, because actually from the chart, I can see a number of people here are either universities, some are working in the NGO sector. Maybe just how can all of us be involved, because one cannot do this alone.
Well, thank you. So if you look at the group of demography, or how the populations are distributed, you realize that if you, for example, take the population between 15 years to 24 years, it's about 16% of the global population. So what that one means, and in fact, if you increase it to 35, then you have more people there. What that one means is that the majority, or those who are the dominant age group across the globe, are the youth. Now, number one, the youth possess a particular form of energy, which I seriously like, because if you harness it properly, then that forms a very promising future. Youth have the potential to innovate. Youth have the time to really think through what can be done now today to make sure that tomorrow is better. So to begin with, I want to really support the fact of calculation or inculcating the curriculum, the climate change issues into the curriculums of our children. And that's the way we can already start impacting morals to our future leaders, so that when it comes to their time, then they are not struggling with the menace which we have already created right now. So as AMREF and as an organization, and I know many other stakeholders are looking at it this way, we are trying to mainstream programming around the youth, making our programming youth-centric, and engaging and involving youth meaningfully. What that one means is that if it is building their capacity in terms of mentorship, helping them to understand what should be the next step in their life in terms of careers, and what they should be considering as the moral virtues or the virtues that they need to take place. We are already opening that space for our youth. And of course, we do the same for the children. We have our whole programming around reproductive, maternal, and child health. And what we try to do is to inculcate those virtues to children from the word go. Now, as I quit, the other part which I also don't like forgetting is about women involvement. So the way I look at it is like, if you exclude women, it's like trying to walk with one foot, so you can only hop. But if you involve women, you can actually run. So the entire issue of involving women is not just just a matter of convenience, but it should be a fact, and it should be done as a major kind of intervention if we have to address global problems holistically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin Moshangi. I would like to invite members participating in this session. If you have a question, or if you've put your question on the chat box and have not been able to get to it, you can raise your hand and we can allow you to add to this conversation. I would like to, actually, Douglas Rono mentions that he would like to understand more of the effect of climate on crop nutritional value and how can that contribute to lifestyle disease. I can see a number of questions coming in. Timothy Soita is also asking, is also saying that he's an agribusiness manager, and talk of greenhouses. At times it's very hot in those houses, and as a result we are forced to leave it open to release some gases and heat. Would like to know, how does that have an effect on climate? So these are two questions on greenhouses, how it affects climate, and the other one was on how lifestyle diseases are contributed to due to crop nutritional value. Anyone from the participants, if you'd like to, if you have a question, kindly raise your hand and you can speak directly to us. I would like Mr. Anthony from the Ministry of Health to touch on the nutritional value and how it contributes to lifestyle diseases. Meanwhile, Solomon can be thinking about the other question to answer it. Mr. Anthony?
Yes, thank you. When you talk of nutrition, we are talking of micronutrients in the body, and it usually gets, and this particular time we are addressing when it is, we can look at it when it is in short supply. Like for example, we are talking of, if for example, a certain food is supposed to give, let's say, ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C, and for one reason or the other, it doesn't, or for for a reason or another, it is not produced in quantities that it will meet the required amounts. It could be that the food itself is not produced in good quantities, or it does not meet, is not having the right nutrient quantities. Like, for example, let's say you are taking something like spinach. Spinach is known to add specific vitamins. And if, for example, it is taken or it is put and the season fails, it means that particular area, and we know particularly in the rural that serves the towns and urban areas. It means that in that particular time, we may not be able to get in the right quantities that is required. The other thing is that when we put, for example, my previous speaker talked about use of chemicals, use of fertilizers and the like, and then incorporated in foodstuffs which should actually be naturally growing. It means that in addition to getting these particular vitamins, you could be getting chemicals which are not meant to be in the body, thereby affecting the whole health of the individual in addition to the nutrition. Maybe my colleague here, Martin, could add on to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Before Martin adds to that, I would like to thank Collins Ngetich for reminding us that it's not only about focusing on tree planting, we should also focus on protection. Thank you so much, Collins. Martin, you can add.
So I think Anthony has put it very clearly, but there's a whole research which shows that by the way carbon dioxide has already increased in the atmosphere, it is affecting the quality of food that is produced. And in this case, it's more or less of displacement. If you are to grow your spinach, like the way Anthony gave the example, and you have high carbon concentration, what that one means is that there's more development in terms of the carbohydrates within that within that vegetable, as opposed to keeping the ascorbic acid. And you know, whatever is produced is what we consume. At the end of the day, what that one means is that if your intention of eating a particular fruit or vegetable was to get a particular vitamin, then that vitamin is already displaced thanks to the fact that carbon dioxide concentration is higher than necessary. So there's a whole big issue around thinking of how these things are happening. And of course, the issue of pesticides, whereby if temperatures are increasing, then the pests are increasing, farmers tend to use more pesticides, and that puts us at a risk in terms of health. So it's a whole cyclic kind of an issue which we need to look from the perspective of first stopping climate change and being conscious. And I'm so happy because I heard somebody is talking about organic farming, being conscious about how we are producing our food and how we are consuming our food, minimizing waste, and being morally upright to understand that whatever you don't need, please don't have it. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mushangi. I had seen a hand from Newton, but Newton, if you're still there, you can raise your question. I can't seem to find him. Is he still on? If you're on, you can directly ask your question. Meanwhile, anyone with any other question, kindly raise your hand as we move on with the program. Johnson Boyer, you had also, yes. Johnson Boyer, kindly speak.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Madam Sada, for this great opportunity. I'm Johnson Boya Onyango, the chair, Lekuksa, Lower Eastern Kenya. I would just like to do an inquiry from your technical bench. My question is, how I just wanted the panel to explain into detail, how does the stratospheric ozone depletion and ultraviolet radiation affect human health? Yeah, do you understand?
Yes, thank you. We understand. My panelists, kindly, one can pick. Thank you, Johnson, for that question. Mr. Panam? Mr. Moshangi, anyone?
Yeah, I could say it, and we are trying to make each one of us understand. You know, what happens is that the sun is supposed to give us light, and in addition to that, is supposed to give us heat. One of the things that come from there is the ultraviolet rays. And when that it meets the ozone and it gets scattered, and it is not in proportions because of the they're called what? These greenhouse gases. That in itself affects the very many serious chemical reactions that happen in the atmosphere. For example, the nitrogen available there reacts, and all these then affect even the water which is available, eventually touching on the human being, and the whole ecosystem actually gets affected. So in a broad term, we would say that it is not that oxygen or ozone on its own reacts on, it affects on triggers reaction onto other chemicals available in the troposphere and stratosphere. Thank you. I would urge my colleagues.
Just to add on to that, thank you so much, Anthony, for taking that call. I don't want to talk about the effects of the layer, but I wanted to take it to slightly different level and say that, you know, when God created this earth, he created with every little detail. He created the earth and he created a layer for us so that we get protected. So we as humans, we came into this being and, you know, we try to meddle with everything and anything that we could lay our hands on. So that has poked some holes in the layer. And that is now causing a lot of issues. And we shouldn't have been even aware of such issues. But because we have gone to a stage where we have not just damaged what is there on the earth, but what is lying above us as well. So we had to get into these details. So that is the effects, you know, there are negative effects, but if you go a step back and think that, you know, what prompted it, it's none other than it's our own behavior. Somebody else also asked a question, human behavior. I mean, it's precisely that which has made these things unfortunate things currently.
Thank you for that, Mr. Van. It's actually quite clear that, you know, God puts a layover to protect us, but then we are doing a lot of things to harm ourselves. Passenger, you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much for this opportunity and this very insightful webinar. My question is, since we have realized that there is a lot of use of chemicals in our farms, and many farmers are really using the chemicals, and there is very limited information about how we can come in as organic farmers or organic agricultural inputs producers. How can we be included, or what kind of platforms can we work with so that we can be able to reach out to more population to sensitize them on effects of agrochemicals and the chemical fertilizers to the environment, so that we can be able to make the organic food more available to most of the households, because as current, the organic food is very expensive and it's much healthier than the food produced chemically. So as actors in organic farming, how can we be held hands so that we can be able to reach out to more population in this country, so that many people can be able to access organic agricultural inputs, and at the same time be able to enhance organic farming in most of these in most of our counties. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Percy Njeri, for that question. Mr. Martin, kindly, if you can take that one.
Yeah, good. So thank you so much, Njeri. I'm not so much deep in agriculture, but this is what I see. The first point is really to build the capacity of farmers. First of all, to appreciate the core methods of organic farming that requires like inputs which are not as expensive as it should be. Because I understand, first of all, the production process is labor intensive, and sometimes you lose money. Of course, when you're in deploying labor, you are losing money and time for that. So building capacities and introducing technologies which are organic, but then they are cost effective is one of the things. And then number two, I think there's a whole big picture around what I would call financial inclusion, because how we are able to access or how we are able to do the moral imperatives of producing food in the right way is because I am somehow in a position to consciously deploy a method which is going to produce something safer than if I decided just to run to the shop and buy a chemical, produce the food at a cheaper cost. So there's the entire picture of economic empowerment. And so to speak, I think Vanam and his team at KCIC are already doing very good work. First of all, helping nurture innovations, whether they are financial, business casing, and building capacities of people to really get to know how to save, how to deploy their money wisely, how to build a proper business case around their production system, and all that. And that is what we need to deepen. And what I would want to promise as we move forward is that as we kickstart this momentum, we will be trying to look at the entire ecosystem of controlling climate change and health challenges. So that should be one of our agenda moving forward. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moshangi.
I could add my thought on that.
Okay.
Yes, I think the issue of cost of production is also a key. It influences on the prices of the food coming from organic farming. I don't know to what extent that the organic farmers would come together and form kind of a cooperative so that you're able to harness their resources together and make the whole process a little bit cheaper. Because I think even when they are that way, when they come together, they're able to even be able to reach out to organized groups at the KCIC and actually get the necessary both whichever innovation can come about. It could be technological, it could be financial. Yes, thank you. That's my thought.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Sada, thanks Martin and thanks Anthony for those thoughts. Just to give some encouragement to the organic farmers who are there here, KCIC did a survey a couple of years ago on the environmental practices of the company and also changing behavior of consumers. So if you given an option 4 years ago for the same product, if the price of one product is, say, for example, 100 shilling and the second product is 90 shilling, chances are that you would go for the product which is of 90 shilling. You wouldn't care who the company is or what kind of practices or sustainability practices that the company is looking at. So when we undertook that survey, we asked a precise question asking that, if the prices of a particular company is high, but they use sustainable practices, they use organic farming, would you be willing to procure or purchase a product which is slightly higher than the market rate? Surprise, surprise. I mean, 65% or 75%, if my memory serves me right, said that, they don't mind spending additional 10 shillings or additional 10% or additional 20%, provided the product is sustainable, provided the product is organic, provided the company which is selling uses the sustainable practices. So from that perspective, whoever asked that question, the future is all yours in terms of organic farming, in terms of companies who are using sustainable practices. The future is all yours. Gone are the days that, companies will use anything and everything and sell their product in the market. They may survive today, they may survive tomorrow, but they will definitely not survive a week from now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vanam, for that. Definitely, they will not survive 2 years from now. I see a number of people raising their hands now. We have Janarius and we have Dixon. I don't know if you can be able to unmute yourself, Dixon or Janarius. Meanwhile, there's another question on clarity. Someone wants to There's someone speaking. Have you been able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I think I've been unmute myself in areas. My question was I wanted Anthony from the government. We have surveillance data from the epidemiology and disease infection unit that are related to health implications based on the contemporary farming practices that incorporate the use of chemical fertilizers, because as we understand, there's extensive use of the chemical fertilizers that makes the soil health quite poor, and there's now projects to poor productivity. Where on top of that, we also have the population consuming the substandard food matter that results to health implications. Again, from the video we watched, there was some data that indicated that the country spends $2 to $4 billion in a year trying to address climate change effects. So, of what percentage can this one be attributed to agriculture? And so that once we've incorporated such kind of data, we can be able to maybe incorporate some kind of an action plan whereby now innovations can be quantified with regards to the amount of money that is being lost because of such scenarios. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janelius, for that question. Yes, there is surveillance for all diseases that we see, but most of those one touching on chemicals. We must say that this is the time we are building up. Is there? Okay, I'm saying that we have a surveillance, and for our purpose here, we say that we normally collect data to monitor how diseases are. And as you are aware, there's the remark that the cancer cases are on the rise. And one of the things that we ask in surveillance or epidemiology is that when you see a rise in cases, are they biased towards one gender or one sex? Are they biased towards one age group? Are they biased towards one region? Are they biased? And if they are, what are the unique features that favor or actually make it favorable for that particular disease or condition to thrive? So whereas it is, we don't have very up-to-date data to say that particular agricultural practices have led to this, there is a general trend to be seen that the higher we have, the more we have used chemicals to grow our agricultural products for consumption and other uses, that cancer cases have been seen to rise. And as such, we are establishing a mechanism of actually monitoring how chemicals are being used and how they are even being disposed in addition to use. So we have that particular surveillance, and it's a matter of time we are going to enhance that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Martin Moshangi, there's a question for you to elaborate on community engagements, because you keep on saying that you cannot do this alone. So how are we supposed to do it?
Yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, I want to appreciate the question which Kimaro asked, because just energizing what Anthony spoke to, all what we need to do is to, I know there's some data, but that data can be synergized in a way that we can be able to speak with power. And so like the cases which we were giving around the endemicity of malaria changing, yes, we have some information, but that needs to be deepened. And that's the way we can be able to stand even firmer and say that now, looking at this, everyone pay your attention to X, Y, Z. And there are three main sectors, which I know the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Environment worked on the nationally declared commitments. So that is agriculture. It's very key. And number one, the way we produce what we produce and how we produce it. And then number two is the energy sector. Energy, because you are talking about burning of fossils and all these means of producing energy, sometimes which are not sustainable, including cutting of trees. And then the third one is around the Ministry of, I think, Agriculture, Energy, and which is the other? Transport. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So those three ministries combined actually, first of all, form the mark of the climate change influencers, but we're also pushing from our end around having healthy NDCs. How can we embed health issues within the nationally declared commitments? And so now I'll go to the community engagement issues, and because our philosophy is very simple. If you want to involve everyone and everywhere, then you must meet the people in their communities. And when I mean community, it doesn't mean the village. It means whether it is a cohort of youth, that is a community. And so youth are best engaged from their youthiness or from their perspective. If it is a community of business people, then they have a whole philosophy of thinking and all that. So we have clusters, and we have clustered the communities in terms of gender, we've clustered communities in terms of age, we've clustered communities in terms of religion. And all this is just to make sure that the way we come to you is effective, or the way we engage with you is in fact effective in terms of messaging and in terms of crafting the interventions that seriously affect on you. So we have all that philosophy, and AMREV is really community centered. It is youth. It takes women as the core to making sure that we have a societal change. So in short, that's the way we look at the community engagement issues.
All right, thank you so much.
I
Yes, Anthony.
Yes, yes, and in community engagement, it's important to note that an organization like AMREF, especially when it comes to issues of health, and we are talking about climate change and health, there are also mechanisms of getting feedback from the community. As we talk to them, we also get feedback, and that feedback is important because it means when we meet for the first time, we shall lay down the ground, then get feedback on how to improve on what we did last. So thank you very much for now.
Thank you so much. So as we wrap up this panel segment, I would like to, first of all, invite Mr. Vanam Prabhakar to talk about, there's a question on how whether there's a place for technology innovations in this agenda. So I'm sure, Mr. Vanam, you can talk about that as we wrap up on your final words towards this conference today.
Well, let me say this, innovations is way of life. I mean, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, nobody heard of, or 2 years ago, nobody heard of COVID. Now the world hears about COVID. So the necessity is mother of all invention, and that's where all the innovations come in. World is a very dynamic place, and we need to, it presents different problems to us, which requires innovative solutions. So innovations should never stop. Innovation should be there, and that's the genesis of KCIC. We have innovation in our name. We fund proposals, we invite, we encourage companies or SMEs or individuals who has an idea to come up with some kind of innovations to address the local issues, to address a challenge in your village, to address a challenge in your community. Come up with some innovations, and those innovations will be well received in terms of funding, in terms of providing business advisory services. Somebody asked the question, what are the avenues? So KCIC does have an avenue where it calls for proposals addressing specific issues, everything related to climate change, of course. We do that across 5 broad sectors: water, waste, agriculture, renewable energy, as well as commercial forestry. So anybody has an idea, we do run cohorts in terms of call for proposals. So get on with our social media, look at the call for proposals, and innovations would be there, technology would be there. We are funding a lot of companies within KCIC who have technology service providers. We are funding many companies within KCIC through KCIC who has innovative solutions. So that will never stop, and that is something that we promote as part of our DNA.
Thank you so much. James Agua, I still, your hand is up. Yes. James Agwa.
Yes, thank you. I had some questions, but then Vanam had actually answered my questions. Because one thing everybody's talking about organic agriculture, but organic agriculture is vast and it entails a lot of things. Majority of us may think that organic agriculture is simply applying organic inputs in the fields, which is not true, because organic agriculture involves where is your field, what are you planting there, what kind of inputs are you using. So it's all inclusive. And for instance, if you plant a crop next to the road, can we say that is organic crop? No, it's not, because there's a lot of fumes that are coming from the vehicles that get into your field. So organic agriculture is broad and requires a lot of regulations. But I think at the moment in Kenya, we don't have proper regulations for organic agriculture.
Okay. I don't know if anyone from the panelists can pick that up, as well as addressing intellectual property rights, including patents for the designs and innovation in the funding model. Mr. Vanam, I think that goes to you.
Yeah, maybe I can respond on the IPR. So one of the services that we offer, as I said, was access to information. And as part of that, what we do is we cover IPRs because we want the entrepreneur, or we want the SME, or we want the ideator to kind of protect their ideas while they scale up. We don't want to take your idea and sell it to somebody else or give it to somebody else so that they take advantage of your idea. So we do have a proper mechanism. We have an agreement with WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, through which we have mechanisms which protects the idea. Once it gets to a stage where we need to patent it, we provide all kind of support to also patent it. And as we speak, I don't have the exact number, but at KCIC, we have supported around 653 odd enterprises, of which we had patented at least 5 to 10% of the ideas because it was very unique, because we wanted to protect the idea, because the company would be going to scale, and we wanted to ensure the company or the SME receives all kind of support in terms of IPR. So that is something that we offer as part of service, if that answered your question.
Absolutely. I'm sure, James Agwa, you're now comfortable. As we move towards the end of this session, I'm inviting Mr. Moshangi to give his final remarks. I would also like to remind each and every one of you that this conversation is not ending here. We will be still talking about climate change and the nexus with health. How do they intertwine? How do they affect each other? And why it is important for us to talk about this conversation. So on the chat box, please put your email address, put your contact, so that community engagement forum can be created, and you will be involved in this entire process. Remember also the social media pages of AMREF and also KCIC are very much active, and you can be able to share your questions, your thoughts about this particular conference, and also maybe any idea you have that can help you and can help our country towards this climate change issue. Mr. Moshangi or Anthony, anyone can go first.
Okay, good. So mine, first of all, is to thank all the participants, the organizers, appreciating the WHO, the Ministry of Health, our colleagues and partners in KCIC. I know we've already kickstarted our journey by signing a very concrete MOU, and mine is to say that it's not crossed. So we continue inviting other stakeholders to join us in this journey, and our journey is very simple. We have to realize health, and health for everyone, because that's the core mission for AMREF, and I believe all of us want to live healthy. So from our end, we want to promise that we will work with you in this journey. We will make sure that whatever we do, we are doing it for the purpose of attaining the welfare of the normal Kenyan and the welfare of our African brothers wherever they are. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Martin Moshangi. Mr. Anthony Wainaina.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think Martin has put it very well. but I want to re-emphasize on one issue that we really need to strengthen our coordination for us who are actually advocates for climate change and health. So that because we realize that, as I said at the beginning, resources are always scarce, and it's only when we come together and actually prudently use the little we have together that we are able to achieve much. I am liking this kind of visibility that climate change and health is getting, and I really looking forward to having this at many more. And I believe that we are just starting the journey, and in due course, and I think we shall achieve much more. So this world belongs to all of us. We are holding it brief for the future generations. They have allowed us to use it. So let's protect it, and we live happily, we live it happily. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anthony Wainaina. I really like that you mentioned we are holding this world briefly. You know, we're just people passing by, and others will come and they will need the same air, the same space that we are now destroying. So we have to protect it for the future generations. Mr. Vanam Prabhakar, this is another opportunity for you to
Thank you so much. And this is a sincere gratitude to everyone who attended the webinar, and also all the people who were behind it, who made a lot of efforts in terms of ensuring its success. And also thank you, my partners, AMREF, where we've been discussing for quite some time. And as Martin has rightly put it, this is just a start. I mean, we are not ending it here. Anybody who has a brilliant idea, anybody who has a suggestion, anybody who has contribution, which makes the world, if not better, at least at the same space where you entered into this world, we want to leave it to the same way to the future generation. So that is the target, that is the motto, that is the zeal in which we are working. And along with that, while AMREF brings in this fantastic technical expertise on health, we bring in this domain expertise of climate change, as well as access to finance and various other issues. So it's a good combination. So anybody has any thoughts, any ideas, any recommendations, any suggestions, we would be more than welcome. We would be reaching out to each one of you. As we said, this is just a beginning. We'll be reaching out more through our social media platforms on the next steps and the new ideas and the new projects that we would be taking up. And we would be hoping that, you will all join us in this journey and make this as a movement to protect the planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And indeed, we need a movement to protect the planet. I am inviting Agnes Mwendwa and Johnson to give their final remarks and vote of thanks. Agnes Mwendwa.
Okay. Thank you very much for this conference. I'd like to thank Mr. Vanam from KCIC, you, Ms. Sada, for being our host, Mr. Machangi from AMREF, and Mr. Wainaina. From this, we've been able to see how the climate change is affecting our health, from disease prevalence, and also how it is influencing our food, which later influences our health. And one thing that has come out clearly is also how we are planting our food, because many people have come up with talks on organic agriculture and how the foods that we are eating are influenced by climate change and other results influencing us. So yeah, I will also like to ask fellow participants to also engage in community engagements, and also include technology in our working, so that we may be able to not only mitigate but also adapt to climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Agnes Mwendwa. If we can have Johnson.
Okay, thank you again, Madam Sada-san. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, actually, to the technical bench, the moderators, Kennedy Ouma, all our guests, Vanam, Machangi. It's a great day for you have sacrificed your time to be with us. Actually, I just want to highlight one or two recommendations or notations. We as the youth, we know the world today is changing at a very quick speed. Technology is not left behind. So when KCIC in conjunction with AMREF Africa come together to do sensitization on the climate change and its significance or its relevance to health. It's a very touching and it is really connecting us. One thing to the youth, let us be productive to the country and to the entire nation. The world needs the youth. That the nation is moving at based on technology. Let us advance on our technology. Let us go back to the ground, our community, and advance them. Let us do them sensitization on the technology. Let us come up with methods, new ways and devices that now can enhance. Let us not be idle, but let us incorporate and let us journey this together. As young generation, a country that has a productive generation is able to move far. Kenya is third world country and we are not happy about it. But now, through turning our technology, our resources into some resourceful ideas, then we can now move far much ahead. So I would just appreciate KCIC Innovation Center to continue. We work 24/7 around. We work around the clock, and AMREF in conjunction, we continue supporting the young innovative ideas. One categorically, the KCIC, since I knew it, now it's around 2 years since I knew KCIC. They are supporting the youth ideas at the grassroots level, at national level, mid and ground level. Actually, I'm glad to say that I'm a beneficiary of KCIC. I participated in a program known as the 47 Champions Award, and actually I merged the top among the participants, and I was among the awardees of the 47 Champions Award. And from that time, I've been working close with the KCIC in bringing up the objectives, mission, goals, and ambitions together. Same to AMREF. Let us journey together to make this country, this entire nation, a better place than we found it. As Madam Hassan said, we're just passing. But now let history be penned down. Let one day history be penned that Madam Hassan, when she was in her tenure or in her era, she did this and this and this, and now something will be celebrated. However, she might not be in a position to witness, but now the generation will witness. Like just in today's world, we are celebrating the heroes that we never witnessed. The likes of we have great heroes like Nelson Mandela, J.F. Kennedy. They were heroes of the world. The Professor Margaret Wangari Maathai. When we are celebrating this, Wangari Maathai, those are the key front headliners. Which they should be remembered, and they are now not able to witness. I'm just saying thank you. It was a great session. Now, my last remark is just to request our guests, Madam Hassan and your team, your organizers, kindly to just drop their contacts in the chat box so that I just have a common platform, WhatsApp, that I'm going to create right away for only the participants, so that now this journey does not stop here, but now we share 1, 2, 3. These youths are very productive, and now when we come on board, we can share wide. We have very innovative ideas to share. But now, this is just a polite request.
Seems like we've lost Johnson, but thank you so much, Johnson. We really appreciate your contribution and your remarks, and I'm sure KCIC have heard about that, also AMREF and the Ministry of Health, and they all agree that it is important for us to come together to advance this important topic to the next level. We have to keep on talking about it until we have been able to create a world that is better for us and also for the future generation. I would like to thank each and every participant for being part of this session, for marking history. It's not unusual everyday activity to see that we have been able to sustain such a huge number for 2 hours. I really appreciate your time and effort to join this conversation. We really appreciate your presence because without you, we wouldn't be here. I want to thank our panelists, Mr. Vanam Prabhakar. I want to thank Mr. Anthony Wainaina, and I would like to thank Mr. Martin Lushangi for your contribution. You have steered this conversation. You have brought in your expertise, and I am sure from the comments on the chat section, the people, the participants have been able to take in a lot of knowledge, and they will be able to reach out in one way or another. I would like to thank AMREF. I would like to thank KCIC for the opportunity to have such an important webinar and for the opportunity to bring in so many people from different platforms to share on this one conversation. Thank you all so much for being part of this journey, and we continue with the conversation on social media everywhere. Please let the world know that we have to protect this society. We have to protect our climate, our air, in order to ensure that our future generations are also benefiting from it. Thank you all. Not forgetting Mr. The WHO representative. Thank you so much for being part of this organization, and to all the organizers, thank you so much for making this possible. Maybe KCIC, anyone from KCIC, Kennedy, if you can add anything in a minute, or Jacqueline from AMREF.
Thanks, Sada, for this beautiful session. I think it has been really wonderful, as all of us have experienced. And indeed, we are on the top of the hour, and then that implies that indeed all of us now have been able to do all that it pertains to this webinar. And we want to wish you all a very good, moment, indeed, as we are working towards bettering our climate for the purposes of our health. So from us at KCIC, we congratulate you and we thank you so much for making this a success.
Thank you so much, Kennedy. Jacqueline, if we can hear from you. Okay, if Jacqueline is not able to hear from us, maybe Kennedy, you can lead us in closing this session.
It's okay. I think it's a wrap. Members and all participants are just can be able to leave at their own pleasure. Yeah, we'll just leave it on for the next 5 minutes as we record and we download everything. Then we'll be able to close it. So you can leave at your own pleasure. And thanks a big deal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.
Yeah.
Thank you, and bye-bye.